Holy Spirit. We're blessed once again, haven't we? Ain't God good? So we thank Him for His grace, His mercy, and His loving kindness. So this morning in our devotion, before we get started, I want to announce that I'm the deacon of the week. My number's in the bulletin as well as on the bulletin board outside here, okay? If you can't, 24/7. Thank you. If you can't get me, talk to one of the other deacons. If you can't get one of those, get with the pastor. Amen. But somehow or another, you're going to touch base with someone, somewhere. Amen. All right. I'm going to be doing a scripture. Sister Little John, Deaconess Little John, will be doing a song. Brother Deacon McIntyre will be doing a prayer. Amen. All right. Please stand for the reading of the word. Because we serve an awesome God, and God is good to us. I'm reading to you 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 6 through 12. Amen. The word reads as such. However, we speak wisdom amongst those who are mature, yet not the wisdom of this age, nor of the rulers of this age, who are coming to nothing. But we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the ages of our glory, which none of the rulers of the age knew, for had they known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But it is written, eye has not seen nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man, the things which God has prepared for those who loved him. But God has revealed them to us through his Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yes, the deep things of God. For what man knows the things of man except the spirit of the man, which is in man. Even so, no one knows the things of God except the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit of whom is from God, that we might know the things that have been freely given to us by God. I read you 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 6 through 12. May the Lord have a blessing of the hearers, readers, and most importantly, the doers of his holy word. Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to sing.
I'm sorry.
I was wondering about that. All right. Okay. Listen, there's a poem that I learned when I was in elementary school. I've kept tucked away in my heart all these years. It's called The Blind Plowman. It goes like this. Place my feet upon the soil, my hand upon the plow. Place my face towards the sun, and praise be to God. God, who took away my eyes, that my soul might see. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you in this day. We come before you in a turbulent world. We come before you under conditions where many of those in leadership, those in the street, men, women, children who have lost their way, whose souls are blind to the suffering that they cause, souls that are blind to the iniquity in their hearts, souls that are blind to the needs of others. We pray, Father God, and we thank you, Father God, for being God and a God all by yourself. We thank you, Father God, because for 25 years the devil's been throwing bricks at this edifice, at the True Spirit Baptist Church. We thank you, Father God, for those who have stood up with the full armor of God upon themselves to ensure that this church would remain a church that worshiped you in spirit and in truth. We thank you, Father God, for each and every single family represented here. We thank you for the saints who have gone and been called home by your Son, Jesus Christ. And we thank you, Father God, for the new beginning that we received with the new pastor and his family. We thank you, Father God, for the foundation laid by those many who aren't here or who were here before us. And we thank you, Father God, for those who are going to bring us forward. Pray, Father God, for the affliction that many of us feel. Pray for the loved ones that have been lost. Pray for those young men who have lost their lives, maybe in war-torn countries or perhaps in war-torn streets. pray, Father God, that you'll bring comfort for them. And then, Father God, we thank you for the new beginning. We thank you, Father God, for the young people that we have here at True Spirit Baptist Church. We thank you for the young ones that usher and dance and sing. We thank you, Father God, for the youth workers that give them direction. We lift up, Father God. We pray, Father God, for mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and emotional healing, blessing, protection, and health to all those that are here and represented here and those who couldn't make it. Pray these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. For the sake of his blood that was spilled for us, beg you to hear our prayer. Amen.
All right, let's try this again. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to attempt to sing, Let Jesus Lead You. Well, let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you all the way, all the way from earth to heaven. Let Jesus lead you all the way. Well, he's a mighty good leader. He's a mighty good leader. He's a mighty good leader. All the way from earth to heaven. Let Jesus lead you all the way. Well, let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you all the way from earth to heaven. Let Jesus lead you all the way. He's a mighty good leader. He's a mighty good leader. He's a mighty good leader. All the way from earth to heaven. Let Jesus lead you all the way.
Amen. Praise the Lord, everyone. That concludes our devotion. Now we turn you over to the pulpit. Amen. Amen.
We'll now have a baptism. Those that want to come up to the choir loft, you're more than welcome to get a better view of the baptism. We're now going to have baptism.
Amen. How many remember the day you went in the water? Y'all awful quiet. We must need to baptize the church. How many remember the day you went in the water? The Bible says, such as Jesus was buried into death and then resurrected, the believer too shall be buried into death, and he too shall be resurrected. We're grateful for what God is doing in True Spirit. A church is not a church if lives are not being changed. And so we thank God for those that are coming to the water to be baptized. Amen. Take me to the water. They say in the old church, the pastor would say, obedience to the great head of the church. And upon the confession of your faith, I baptize you, my sister, in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Come on, let's give God a hand clap of praise. Shall see God. I know I've got. Y'all know that song? Sing that with me. I know I've got religion. I know I got religion. In the Gospels, the Lord tells us that we are to allow the children to come unto Him because they have a right to Him as such as we do. And it is a great day when we have a young man or girl to come, young boy or girl, to come and say, I want to give my life to the Lord. With all the things that's going on in this world, they come before God asking for an extra type of divine protection. And though they know they're not going to be perfect, but the Bible says that as Jesus was buried in his death, he too was resurrected, and as we are buried into the death of the Lord, we too shall be resurrected. So today we give great honor and pleasure to God for another one of his babies to come before him. As they would say, obedience to the great head of the church. And upon confession of your faith, my brother, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Ghost. Now come on, let's celebrate. That's one of our children. Amen. Shall see God. Take me to the water. Take me to the water. Take me to the water. To be baptized. Obedience to the great head of the church. And upon the confession of your faith, my brother, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Ghost.
Well, I've
responsive reading. I will be the leader, and you will follow as the congregation. We're reading from 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, 23rd through the 28th verse. For I received from the Lord, which I also delivered unto you, that the Lord Jesus, on the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread.
And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me.
In the same manner he took also the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do as often as you drink it in remembrance of me.
For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you declare the Lord's death until he comes.
Therefore, whoever eats this bread or drinks this cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. All. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink that cup. You may be seated.
Amen. was torn apart. He held it in his arms, and then he gave it to his only son. His name is Jesus. Yeah, he can fix whatever's broken. Yeah, I tell you, I gave him my heart. Jesus.
trust the Lord and believe that He can work it out. He can do it. He can do whatever is broken up in
Anybody have something they just want to send back? I want to send back that hurt. I want to send back that pain. Send it back. Because God can fix what is broke. What's broken up. It's praying time in the house. If you have anything that you need to lay down at the altar, I invite you to come to the altar at this moment. Because God can fix what is broken. Hallelujah. 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 Thank you, God. If you can just begin to open up your mouth and sing praises to the Lord. Because He truly can fix what is broke. Oh, Father God, right now we come to you and say thank you, God. Thank you for this day that you've provided us with, God. Thank you for the family that you've allowed us to come in fellowship with, Lord. Lord, we thank you that you allowed us to lay our heads down last night, Lord God, and sleep peacefully, God, and be able to wake up this morning in this house. Lord, we just acknowledge that you are amazing. You're awesome. You're wonderful. You're powerful. You're all-knowing, God. But your people are hurting. Lord, we thank you for being a healer, God. We thank you for being a comforter, God. We thank you for being that friend when we're friendless, Lord. But right now, God, the enemy is busy. And we ask right now, God, that you release all the demons that the enemy has sent to attack us. We plead the blood right now on every demonic force, Lord God, that's in this place, God. Lord, right now we pray against bullying, God. We pray against gun violence, Lord Jesus. We pray against hurt, Lord God. We pray against everything, Lord God, that is not like you, Lord. Lord, right now we understand that mental health is running rampant, God. We pray against that mental health, Lord God, that demon, Lord God, that's causing identity confusion. Right now, God, we ask that you fill us up with joy. You fill us up with peace, Lord God. You fill us up with happiness, Lord God. You fill us up with unity, Lord God. You fill us up with love, Lord God. Lord, right now the world is going through. But that's because we're not praying enough. Open your mouth and just start praying to the Lord. Lord God, we love you right now, God, for what you're doing in the world. And we understand, Lord, that you have a plan and a purpose. We just ask that you open our minds to receive. You open our hearts to hear, Lord God. You allow us to see what you have in store for us. Lord, right now we just look at the prayer list, Lord. The names that are on it, Lord, and the names that should be on it, God. We ask that you cover those homes, Lord God. You cover those families, Lord God. Any sickness, Lord God. Any pain, Lord God. Any loss, Lord God. We ask you to comfort right now, Lord. We ask you to heal. And as we move into 25 years, Lord God, we just ask that you cover this church, Lord. We know the enemy is not happy, and we know he's coming to attack, Lord God. But we ask you to raise up a standard in this place right now, Lord God. Not only the adults, Lord God, but our youth, Lord God, as they start school, Lord. We ask that you just send your hands of protection, Lord. You cover the spaces that they're occupying, Lord God. You bless the teachers with knowledge that they can fill up our youth, Lord God, so they can come and be change agents in this world. Lord, we ask that you just cover the pastor as he brings forth the message today, Lord. You send him a word that is present and will help us in our lives for this week, Lord God. Lord, you cover him as he goes throughout his week, Lord. We ask that you cover his family as well, Lord, because we know that the devil is coming for everyone. Lord, we thank you again for all that you've done and all that you're going to do. In your name I pray. Amen.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Bless your holy name.
Good morning. Good morning. It is offertory period. In Malachi 3 and 10, it says, "Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me where here saith the Lord of hosts, that I will open up a window from heaven and pour you out a blessing,
Oh, yes.
that there shall not be room enough to receive it." Amen. And the word of God is blessed. You are in the hands of your ushers and deacons. Thank you, God, for this day. Thank you for your many blessings, God. Now, Lord, I ask that you bless those who gave and those who could not give, just for the upliftment of your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning, True Spirit. This is the period of our service that we pause to welcome our visitors. And you may say, well, I'm not a visitor. I've been here many times. If you're not a member of True Spirit Baptist Church, you're a visitor. Please stand at this time. Remain standing because you're going to get a gift. Amen. I expect for everyone to jump up. A gift. You don't have to pay for it. Just because you showed up today, we're going to give you something.
Amen.
My name is Duan. My name is Duan, and I'm originally from Emmanuel, and my son was being baptized today, so that's what
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm a member. I want to introduce my cousin Tawanda and her son Terrell visiting True Spirits Baptist. This is her fourth time, but we're going to get her to be a member soon.
My name's Courtney, and this is my daughter Jordan, and we're here for Tayshawn's baptism today.
Amen.
Good morning. This is my friend Treasure. A lot of my family came to support Tayshawn. He might have slipped off by now, but my other brother was here. This is my brother James. And I have family back here as well, so we are excited to worship the Lord with us.
Hi, I'm a member of True Spirit Baptist Church, and I have a friend with me today. She's kind of shy. Her name is Sharon. She's from New York, visiting with us today.
My name's Nakia. I'm here with my daughter Malaya and Samara, and Miss Carlotta, who brought me here today. It's my first time here, and I'm having a good time.
Amen.
Praise the Lord.
Hi, my name is Terrence Hines. This is my first time here. I'm just here to get fed the word.
We are so happy and elated that you chose True Spirit Baptist Church to worship with today. We have a saying here. God loves you, we love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. We do have a special announcement before the overhead presentation. They said oh, yes.
Good morning, family. I just want to highlight that we have on next week our 25th church anniversary. Amen. 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 25 years. Still standing. 25 years. Still family. 25 years. Still able to come and worship a true and living God. A lot of folks don't make it this far, but we have. Amen. 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 Real quickly, I just want to highlight a few things. T-shirts, for those of you who ordered your T-shirts, polos, those will be available for pickup this Thursday from 3 to 6 p.m. This Thursday, 3 to 6 p.m. to pick up your shirts. Also, on Friday, you'll be able to pick those up from 8 to 12 p.m. 8 to 12 p.m. Make sure I was good with my wife. 8 to 12 on Friday. All right? Thursday, 3 to 6. Friday, 8 to 12, that you can pick up your T-shirts. Remember, we have a concert. We want everyone to wear their T-shirts at the concert on Friday evening. Amen? Amen. And then we have our picnic on Saturday. We want everyone to wear your T-shirts on Saturday. Amen? Amen. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do between Friday and Saturday. I'm going to leave it where it's at. Amen? All right. We have our church picnic that will start at 12 o'clock on Saturday. We expect every one of our members to be here. But then we also expect every one of our guests to be here. Amen. All members, you know, you have been asked to give above and beyond your tithes and offering, a love gift to the family, $100. If you cannot afford to give that $100, you give what you can. God accepts it all. Amen. Pastor said this morning, you just give your best. Right? Amen. And that's all I have. God bless you. God keep you.
Please pay attention to the overhead for the announcements.
Good morning! Today is August 4th, and we are just 1 week away from True Spirit's 25th church anniversary. My name is Jamie, and let's get started with this week's announcements. So some of you may be going on vacation to escape the heat. Well, you don't have to miss out on Sunday services. You can catch up on live or previous services and more by searching and subscribing to the channel TSBC Media on YouTube. Are you a new member to True Spirit? Well, we have a class just for you, and it occurs every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. in the fellowship hall. And for those of you just looking to dive deeper in the Word, well, our Sunday school occurs at the same time. As I said at the top of the show, our 25th church anniversary is happening next week, and frankly, I need you all to take a moment to give praise to God for allowing us to get to this point. This anniversary this year is starting this Friday, and what better way to start than with a musical? And then on Saturday, we will have our annual church picnic. And finally, we will have our 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 3:30 p.m. worship services. And the theme for this year is standing together on this rock with a unified vision, coming from 2 Samuel chapter 22, verses 2 through 3. And the colors are gold, silver, and blue. Again, let's get excited because 25 years is no small feat, and we are looking forward to 25 more. Now, that does it for your upcoming events. Keep up with what's going on with us by searching and liking us on Facebook at True Spirit Baptist Church. Now let's get back to the rest of your weekly announcements, and remember, God loves you, I love you, and there is nothing you can do about it, even if you try. Have a blessed week!
Come on. Say, I'm praising. Gonna do it in my hands. I'm gonna praise. I gotta do it in my hands. Say, I'm praising. You gotta do it with your voice. Say, I'm gonna praise. Come on, let's rejoice. Say it again now, I'm praising. I'm gonna praise. I'm gonna do it again. Hey, I gotta do it in my voice. I'm gonna praise him. Somebody say yeah. Yeah, come on. Say yeah. Woo. Come on. I'm praising. Gonna do it in my hands. I gotta do it in my days. Check it out. I'm gonna praise. Say I'm gonna praise. Come on, let's rejoice. Listen, I'm gonna praise the Lord while I have chains. I'm gonna thank the Lord. Thank Him in advance. All of the things that the Lord has brought me through. I'm gonna praise the Lord. And this is what I'm gonna do. Gonna sing the praise before the King. I'm gonna send up my praise before my King. Gonna sing the praise before the King. I don't care what nobody else does. How you gotta praise the Lord. I gotta say yeah. Oh yeah. Come on and let me say. Oh yeah. Say yeah. Come on, say yeah. Yeah. Come on, I know you're feeling it right now. Wherever you are riding in your car, on your job. Listen, let's make the devil mad. Say, I will praise him. Woo, yeah. Gonna praise the Lord while I got this chance. I gotta give him the praise. I gotta wave my hand. I gotta do my dance. I gotta praise the Lord. I will praise him. Early in the morning, in the midnight hour, I praise the Lord. I will praise him. Hey, woo. Come on and clap your hands. Everybody clap your hands. Come on and clap your hands. Come on and give God some praise. Say, I will.
that love the Lord said amen. Those that magnify him, clap their hands and give him a high praise. Oh, we can do better than that. Has he been a blessing for you? Don't fool me now. If you know you've been blessed, just give him about a second of your time. Amen. You may be seated. You may be seated. We're grateful for today. This is the day the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. I'm glad to be here. What about you? Amen. Glad to be alive and know that we're alive and be in the land of the living. Amen. I have a few things I want to give out, a few announcements I want to make. For those that did not know, we were involved in a 5-on-5 basketball tournament at New Jerusalem on yesterday. We had some young men to represent our church. They were coached by Sister Rose and co-coached by Sister Bryant. Amen. And if you looked at the bulletin or if you look at the paper, it gave bragging rights for the winner. Well, y'all do see what I have right here, right? We took first and second place. See, y'all don't even know when to jump. These were children playing basketball. We should celebrate our youth. Amen. We're grateful for that. I'm going to have Sister Rose to come and get the rewards and the trophies. I'm not even going to try to announce these names because I don't want nobody's mama chasing me. Amen. Amen. But we're grateful for, let's give a hand to our two coaches, Sister Rose and Sister Bryant. Amen. And the reason why I say Sister Bryant, because she was right there front and center, yelling at the kids, cheering for them, and it was hot playing on blacktop. Amen. But we're grateful for what the Lord is doing. Amen. Amen. Smile, Rose. You on candid camera. Amen. 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 We're grateful for that. We're thankful for what God is doing at True Spirit. And one thing I do know that if we continue to serve him and look to him, he'll lift us up. Amen. Amen. I have a certificate of baptism. The prices are not here. Amen. Certificate of membership, one for Miss Jacqueline Williams. Certificate of membership completion of Alicia Abram. Is she here? Certificate of membership for Janiyah George. These are our new members that completed the new membership class. Let's give them a hand. Amen. We want to continue to stay in prayer for our various families. I ask that you would continue to stay in prayer for our own Deacon Powell. Stay in prayer for those that's on the highway. Stay in prayer for Sister Lois. She has lost her son-in-law last night to a tragic event in the city dealing with the police department. Now, I'm asking you, brothers and sisters of Christ, to stay prayerful and not ignorant. Amen. Just give me a little bit more on this, Jamie. Just a little bit of volume at the very top. Yeah. Please stay prayerful and not ignorant. The violence that took place last night, we have to allow things to be sifted as we can stand for what's right. Amen. And I don't want to be one that have to come and put anything on your books or have to get with the deacons to come and try to ante up money to get you out for acting ignorant. And I know ignorant is a hard word to use, but the Bible talks of being ignorant as well. We want to stay prayerful for this family as they sift through the tragic that took place of this young man that had a family. And we just pray that God will allow the truth to prevail and that he will cover this family. Amen. So we want to keep our prayers for Sister Lois and her family at this time. Call and check on them. See about her. She is a part of our family. And I'm like this, when your child is linked to you, you are part of our family as well. Amen, somebody. So we're grateful for that. And so we just ask that you stay prayerful for each family that is going on in this city, things that's happening. Also stay prayerful. We have a lot of violence taking place, not only in Texas, but this morning at about 1:22, about 6 people were killed at a club in Ohio. So we want to stay prayerful. Listen, because we're on the mountain and we up high does not mean violence is not coming. Because the Bible says there's wars and rumors of wars. Wars don't have to be us against another country. If you haven't noticed, we're fighting us. Amen. And us's are killing us. And we're making it easy, listen, easy for us not to stand tall. And I say that in a sense because we have to get out of a crab in the barrel mindset, pulling each other down, trying to destroy each other. But we need to encourage each other, uplift each other, pray and encourage for dreams and help people get into their destiny. Amen? Amen. So stay prayerful for all of our families that are going through something. Also, the next day after the anniversary, somebody say the next day, which is August 12th, I believe, we will start our shoe and school supply drive for the community. Amen. In this drive, I'm asking every member to purchase a pair of shoes from some store for our youth from the age of kindergarten to 12th grade, school supplies and book bags, and we want to fill that corner up. So then that on August the 31st, from 10 to 12, we will give school supplies and shoes away to the community, not members of True Spirit, community. And so we'll get the information out. Also on that day, we will be giving out free haircuts for your sons and some of the girls that get the lines and the tapers. We'll be giving out free haircuts given by Superior Barbershop. Amen. I talked with Brother George yesterday, and he's all for it. So he's going to send some of his barbers down. Matter of fact, he cuts my hair, so he do a pretty good job. I'm a barber too, so I know when he ain't touching it right. Amen. He's going to send some barbers down. Also, we're setting it up where if your child has not gotten his shots or her shots for the school year, we will provide that on that day as well. So we want to do that. Amen. And that is for our community. Amen. So let me lay some ground rules to that. If you have a friend that have children and they want to come, bring them. But you will not be able to pick up a package for your friend and take it back to them. Amen, somebody. Because you do know some of us do test a lie. Amen. And so this is for the community. As a church, we have to learn to give back to the community because we are trying to save souls that are in the community and keep those that are saved in the church saved. Amen. So this is what we want to do for that. All right. Also, I want to address our church anniversary again. I'm asking you, ma'am, please, sir, when we celebrate on Saturday with the funds and games in the parking lot, that you refrain from playing spades and dominoes and tunk and bizwiz. Amen. I'm asking you that because we don't know the danger in which some things could draw others to going back to a place where they may have been delivered from. Amen.
Some of y'all looking at me like you ain't never been addicted to some stuff, but sometimes you can get addicted to playing spades and start putting money on the table, and dominoes as well. Amen. And we do know the Bible says the root of all evil is the love of. Okay. So we don't want to put any type of endangerment or be a stumbling block for anyone on that day. But we do plan on having a good time. Amen? Amen. Amen. Also, Tuesday, our midweek few, 11:30 and 7 o'clock. We want to invite you because our subject this time is very interesting. It's a question. Is there schism in the church? Now, schism is described as a split, a separation of church into two churches within one place. But also it's a matter of people getting together with a undoctrinal belief and a matter of opinions. And so in schism, we found out that schism leads to confusion. Confusion leads to disobedient. And then being disobedient leads to being a busybody. I know some of y'all don't like to hear the truth, but we have some busybodies in the church. People that like to be a stumbling block. People that like to splatter your name on the wall. People that like to say you're not worthy of your call or worthy to be in the house of God with them. That is schism. Somebody shout out schism. And we want to invite you on Tuesday. Now, if you're guilty of schism, guess what? We serve a God that has given us Jesus, that all you got to do is repent. Don't do it no more. Repent in the Greek means to return back to its original intent. So that means get back on straight street. Amen. So we don't want to get caught up in schism. I know there's no schism in True Spirit. It's none. But if you got it in your spirit, we want to pray that out so you can see the areas of schism. Division is not accepted in the church. Our basis is coming from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 25 through 27. But we also talk from the passage in Matthew when the Bible says, a house divided cannot stand. And so we want to be a church that's not indulging or being a part of schism. Amen. But we want to be a church that is involved in saving souls and leading souls to Christ and being servant leaders. I know there are some that get it misconstrued. You're not here to be served. You're here to serve. That's what the Lord says. Yeah, I got 3 amens. But I like it when the crowd is tough, because then now the Lord shows me just how bad he is. And so what we need to grasp is that in servanthood, we don't be a part of schism. We help diffuse schism. And so we want you to come Tuesday at 11:30 and 7 o'clock to be a part of our midweek fuel. I guarantee you'll chew on enough that'll make you excited about coming on Sunday. Amen. Amen. So we want to invite you to be a part of that as we give a word and we hear what the Lord says about schism. Amen. So let's give the voices a hand as they come again, as they come to render selection.
Control. I got Satan on my trail, but I'm singing all is well. He's attacking every day, but I'm watching while I pray. No matter the attack, I won't turn back. Tell him, y'all, this means war. This means war. This means war. This means I got joy in my soul. watching while I pray. No matter the attack, I won't turn back. Tell them, y'all.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
I plead the blood, sir.
I plead the blood.
Power in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Healing in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Power in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Listen, I've been in the storm and the rain, but the blood still stays the same. Whatever's going wrong, my war clothes are on. I might be in a daze, but you can't have my praise. No matter the attack, I won't turn back. Tell them, y'all.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
How many of y'all ain't scared to tell Satan where he needs to do? Listen. I said you can't have my family.
You can't have my family.
You can't have my increase.
You can't have my increase.
You can't have my breakthrough.
You can't have my breakthrough.
You can't have my. I plead
the blood.
There's power in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Healing in the blood.
I plead the blood.
There's power in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Listen, I got joy in my soul. I got joy in my soul. I got joy. I got joy. I got joy. I got joy in my soul. God is in control. I got Satan on my trail, but I'm singing all is well. And he's attacking every day, but I'm watching while I pray. And no matter the attack, I won't turn back. Tell him, y'all.
This means war.
Put it in the atmosphere. This means.
This means war.
Put him on notice. This means.
This means war.
Let him know right here and right now.
This means war.
I got anybody want to plead the blood? I plead.
I plead the blood.
There's power in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Healing in the blood.
I plead the blood.
Salvation in the blood.
I plead the blood.
I plead.
I plead the blood.
I plead the blood of Jesus.
I plead the blood.
Protection over your family.
I plead the blood.
Healing in your household.
I plead the blood.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
One more time, you better tell him. This means.
This means war.
Listen, one more time. Listen. I've been in the storm and the rain, but the blood still stays the same. Whatever's going wrong, my war clothes are on. I might be in a daze, but you can't have my praise. No matter the attack, I won't turn back. Tell them, y'all.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
This means.
This means war.
Take him out. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Amen. Let's give him another hand. Let's give the choir another hand. Now let's give Jesus a hand. He's worthy to be praised. He is worthy to be praised. Our God and Father, it's preaching time. Father, we come to you now. Songs have been sung, gifts have been given. So now, God, we ask that you would drop some crumbs from the Master's table. That we are a few of your servants that would like to eat until we want no more. So let this word fall on fertile soil and disrupt stony ground. Hide me behind the throne, oh God. Let them see your image upon me. Let them hear your voice through me. And Lord, I pray that this word changes our lives, that we become more applicable to understand your word and live by your word. So let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh Lord, I praise you, give you all glory and adoration because you're my strength. And Lord, I love you because you're my redeemer. And the household of faith said, amen. I've been through the storm and rain, but oh, I made it. I've been through the storm and rain, but oh, I made it. You don't know what the Lord has done for me, but Jesus did his part so that I can make it. Do I have a witness this morning? I've been through the storm and rain, but oh, I made it. I've been through the storm and rain, but oh, I made it. You don't know what the Lord has done for me, but Jesus did his part so that I can make it. Sometimes I have to stand alone, but oh, I made it. Somebody know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I had to stand alone, but oh, I made it. You don't know what the Lord has done for me. Jesus did his part so that I can make it. This is for somebody. Sometimes I have to cry alone, but oh, I made it. Anybody had to cry lately? Sometimes I have to cry alone, but oh, I made it. You don't know what the Lord has done for me. Somebody ought to just slip your hand up and say, Jesus did his part. Now just point at yourself so that I can make it. Let the church say yes. Yeah. Yes. 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 Right now, Lord, I need something from him right now. Right now, Lord, now, Lord. Right now, Lord. Come on, let's give him about 2 seconds. Or whatever type of praise you got. Allow the Lord to work on your soil so that the seed can be planted. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. He's a wonderful God. He's a mighty good God to know. If you ever been through anything, you know he's the only one that can pull you through. And if you're going through something, if you hold to God's unchanging hand, I'm a witness that he won't let you fall. Yes, talk to us, Jesus. Talk to us, Lord. Minister to us. We need about a second of this. We need about a second of this. Brother Earl, let's kill the music. Right where you are, I just want you to give God some worship. Come on, right where you are. Give him some worship. Talk to him. He's worthy to be praised. Just give him some worship. Let him enter into your life before you get the word. He's good. His mercy shall endure. His mercy is everlasting. It shall always endure in our lives. Amen. Amen. He's sweet, I know. He's sweet, I know. Dark clouds may rise, stormy winds may blow. I'll tell the world wherever I may go that I found a Savior and he's sweet, I know. He's sweet, I know. I'm trying to help somebody that's going through something. He's sweet, I know. Dark clouds may rise, stormy winds may blow. I'll tell the world wherever I may go that I found a Savior. How many know he's sweet? Don't fool me now. Just slip your hand up if you know he's sweet. That I found a Savior and he's sweet, I know. The Gospel according to St. John. The Gospel according to St. John.
chapter 3. If you jump to verse 16, very familiar passage. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. You may be seated. The word of God is blessed. If you would help me for just a few minutes, talk on the subject and the topic, love through the eyes of a shepherd. Love through the eyes of a shepherd. The measure of love is expected of us as people cannot be given at the level in which the Lord has poured out for all of us. We as people today, we struggle with giving love after a person has done us wrong. It's a struggle when a person has betrayed us, cheated on us, backbit, backstabbed. It's a struggle even when someone has left us standing all alone. But the level of love that has been shown to us, Paul says it like this: we need to take a look at it as it is measured by Christ, and it should become a part of our walk. He says in Ephesians 5, and walk in love, even as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for us, an offering of sacrifice to God for an odor of sweet smell. And my brothers and sisters, we should be happy because a shepherd looked through his eye and thought enough to give us his son. And his son thought enough to give up his life so that we can know and see how much he truly loves us. I mean, if you really examine the fact that we should be happy that he loves us, because many of us know that he told us to go right and we went left. We ignored the voice that was given to us because we didn't like what was being said. And yet we should be happy because through all of our mess ups, he still decided to march with a cross on his shoulders. He decided to stay on the cross and get pierced in his side for all of the mistakes that you and I made. And he decided to show us his love and yet come down from the cross and stay there with all the mess ups and the screw ups and the mishaps and the turmoil that he knew that we were going to cause, all to show us that he loves us. And somebody should be shouting, because had it not been for what Jesus did, we all know we wouldn't be here today. In fact, I wish some used to be's would just raise your hand and say, Lord, I'm thankful for not being what I used to be. Y'all ain't hear me this morning. That Lord, I know you love me, because if I would have stayed where I used to be, I wouldn't be able to tell somebody about a Savior that died on the cross to save a wretch like me. I'm preaching and y'all ain't even saying nothing. To save a wretch like me. But God, I'm so glad that you looked through your eyes and decided to love on somebody like me, because I was a wretch undone. But it was your amazing grace. That was a sweet sound. That's the sound you need to hear. That saved a wretch like me. The love through the eyes of a shepherd. We need to understand that when we talk about the love through the eyes of a shepherd, we need to know that the Lord is not ashamed to place himself in dark places to converse on a divine order. Because when you start reading the text in verse number 1, there was a man who was the Pharisee, but the king of the Jews. His name was Nicodemus. And the Bible says, and that same night he came to Jesus.
that was a moment for the Lord to teach to him. And he said, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher and you come from God, for no man can do the miracles that thou hast done except God be with him. And watch this. Look how God talks to him. He says, verily, verily, I say unto you. That's him talking at nighttime. I mean, how many know that he'll talk to you when you're in your deepest hours, in your darkest hours, to let you know, I know it looks dark in your life, but just keep looking up, keep looking to the hills for which cometh all of my help, because all of my help comes from the Lord. How many know God will talk to you at nighttime? You don't have to fear about the boogeyman. You don't have to be fearful of those that like to ramble in the dark, because God will be your shining light in the midst of the storm at nighttime. So he says, and when I looked at this text, I saw this. God loves beyond the criticism that is received because of the deceived thoughts of others. Because one thing you know about Nicodemus, he was a Pharisee. Can I just talk a little bit about some Pharisees? We know Pharisees were self-righteous. They were selfishly driven. But what was unique was God was willing to still talk to him in a dark place of shame. Because the custom was that no Pharisee would be allowed to talk to a man such as God in the daytime, because he would be criticized of whom he is connected to. Can we stop and get a snack? Let's get a snack. You should not be ashamed of the God you serve amongst the people that don't serve him. Some of y'all looking at me strange. Some of us are afraid to magnify God in the church because you in church with your BFF. You in church with your husband or your wife, but somebody ought to be glad that you wasn't ashamed of God, because he said, if you be ashamed on me before my children, I'll be ashamed on you before my Father which is in heaven. Somebody ought to shout out, I'm not ashamed of Jesus. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of him, because watch this. To everything that I've done, he already had a solution. And yet he did not denounce me when I was doing it. Yeah, that should have struck a nerve right there, because many times we are denounced by the environment that we're with. And the people we are connected to will denounce us because of our way of living. I don't know if anybody here, now that you saved, that you lost a lot of friends along the way. And let me tell you something. Don't cry over your friends that you lost, because you're going to lose them even if you're sinning. Because sometimes some people just hate to see you go higher. Some people just hate to see you better yourself. Some people always want to talk about what you don't have and what they have. But how many know when you serve God at the capacity in which he wants you to serve him, serving God will pay off after a while? Somebody shout out, I'm not ashamed of Jesus. He's been too good to me. I'm looking at some spam eaters that can say, now I eat steak. I'm looking at some bologna eaters that can say, now I can eat rag bologna. I mean, some people that can really say, I've been blessed to be a blessing. I don't care what they say. Mean things they say don't make me feel bad. I can't miss a friend that I ain't never had. But as long as I got Jesus, high five somebody and tell them that's enough. That's enough. And so here, this Pharisee, watch this, was not to talk to him in the daytime. And I even saw a little more to that as I get ready to skate down to the text. Sometime people will be ashamed of you even though you ain't done nothing. Y'all with me? Even though you have not done anything, they still will be ashamed of you, because watch this. When they're doing wrong and you're not, then they want to know what is it that's holding you from doing what they're doing. Come on with me. All my weed smokers and the drinkers. When I don't drink, now you're mad because I don't sip from the same cup. because I don't blow back. You mad because I don't want a blue Swisher Sweets. But how many know that when you are living for God, you got to walk pure and unclean? Paul says you got to be holy because God is holy. So then now I have no reason to be ashamed to be in your presence, because the Bible says we all are sinners saved by grace. So there'll be some people, watch this. Don't let your religious practice stop you from speaking with God. Because you do know some people don't feel like we deserve to talk to God. That's a Pharisee. You ain't been through enough to call on God. But I've been in the church 30 years. And if he ain't heard my prayer, he ain't heard your prayer. I've been on this board for longer than you've been living. And how is it that you can get people to function better than I could when I was the president? Or how can you get people to do what I couldn't get them to do when I was there? Because sometimes you got to understand some people are connected to God. And some people don't use their position to find out how far they can get in him. But there are some faithful servants that can say, Father, for you I live and for you I'll die. Though they slay me, yet I will trust you despite of what they say about me. How mean they look at me, because I know when it's all said and done, I'm getting a crown and glory that's been prepared for those that love the. I wish I had some servants in the house that can say, Reverend, it ain't easy serving the Lord. Sometimes you got to look at your friends and say, you know what? I'll go if I have to go all by myself. Why? Because I'm divinely protected with God in front, the Holy Spirit over me, grace and mercy, and Jesus surround. I am protected. Somebody shout out, I'm protected. I'm protected. Don't allow the religious practices to stop you from talking to God. Because I've discovered this, Sister Lois, that when I need to talk to him, I'm looking for an answer that no man can give me. Can I talk to some depressed folk that know what it feels like to be all by yourself, even though people are in your presence? I mean, have you ever just been going through some stuff? People in the house, but yet they just don't understand what you're going through. I mean, young people, you know what I'm talking about. When you're going through issues and you try to explain yourself, but yet they don't have time to hear what's going on. I'm dealing with this. I ain't got time. They said this about me. I ain't got time. I got to lay down and get ready for work. But how many know when you talk to God, his line is never busy? I wish somebody tell me they talked to him this morning. Jesus is on the main line. And they used to say, all you got to do is call him up and tell him what you want. There's so many things I need, but God, if you just let me see another day, I'm grateful. If you just let me breathe one more breath of life, I'll lift my hands in the sanctuary. But Lord, if you just let me keep a sound mind, I'll keep my mind stayed on you, because now I'm in a dark place. You'll keep me in perfect peace if I keep my mind stayed on. First thing I saw in the text is that love through the eyes of a shepherd is that his sacrifice was for the multitude. Text says, for God so loved the world. His sacrifice was geared to the masses of the world for the sake of sin. And he knew sin was in the eyes and the soul of the believers. Did I catch that? Did y'all? He knew that sin was in the eyes and the soul of those that will become believers. Then watch this. Paul says it like this in Romans 5. God commanded his love towards us in that, and yet while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Y'all don't know when to shout. Because watch this. The root word of commanded is command. But in the Greek, the word command means to praise, means epinos, means credit and praise. So he gave his love credit for your sins. Y'all just missed it. He gave his love credit for your sins. Why? Because he knew that his love would cover a multitude of. I wish I had somebody that could say, I thank God for accepting me for who I am and what I am. Because he showed me that his love would cover a multitude of my sins. And what can wash away all of my sins? Nothing but the blood. I wish I had some blood washed redeemers. But the blood of Jesus. Yeah, so he praised his love and sacrificed his son, knowing that his love would have ultimate coverage. I saw something right there when Jesus was talking to Nicodemus. He says, though you who you are, I got ultimate coverage all over you. Even while you do what you do and practice what you practice. I got ultimate coverage. And really, can I just say this? Some folk don't have enough gigabytes. Let me say it in a spiritual mind. Some folk don't have enough God bless yous in your spirit. And you don't understand that though your GBs are running out, God has unlimited blood for you. He has unlimited coverage for it. Wasn't you that drive that pretty car that got you safe. It was his unlimited blood to get you here. It wasn't you to be able to wake up and open up your refrigerator. It was his unlimited blood that fed you. It wasn't you that was able to buy the nice clothes and find the things in life. It was his unlimited blood that covered you. How many know God is unlimited with what he does? Y'all help me today. Holler back at your boy. And what we need to understand is that because his love is unlimited, we have to stop trying to confine God in a box. Because see, some people come to church like a Pharisee. It don't take all that to tell them it means war. But if you don't know his story, you don't understand why it's war. Y'all just missed your shout. And some people need to stop looking at people and take a look in the mirror. Because if I look back over my life and think about the things that I've done, I can put my hand on the hip and say, Lord, my soul shout out hallelujah that I made it over. But if I take a look down memory lane, when the enemy meant it for evil, God meant it for good. So I can lift up my hands and say, thank you, Jesus. Yeah, somebody shout out, his love covered me. His love covered me. But the other thing he shows us is that his love through the eyes of the shepherd, his sacrifice was for the miserable. It was for the miserable. It was for those that were wretchedly unhappy and uncomfortable. The Jews had already made a spectacle of the temple. Because if you read it, they were in the temple. I ain't trying to hurt nobody's feelings. Gambling. It's in the Bible. That ain't me. They were making a spectacle of the temple. And watch this. And the zeal had eaten them up. Watch this. We all know that when we are a part of a custom, things begin to come like you. You heard the preacher say this morning that storms either will be like you or you'll be like the storm. But when you have become accustomed to something and you make a spectacle of it, it then now gets in your bloodstream. And then it becomes a part of your makeshift DNA. Because God did not make anyone in the house to be a thief or a robber. You made the choice because of who you are around and what you let get in your system. Now, the preacher said something interesting today. He said, you got to stop getting in certain people's boats. But you got to stop eating at everybody's table. Because not everybody want to see you eat healthy. Not everybody want to see you live righteous. In fact, there are some people that will booby trap your spaghetti just to make sure you don't want no more. But how many know when the enemy's after you, you know God gives you a spirit of discernment? So then now you can cry out to God. Some of y'all looking at me like I know you don't eat everybody's spaghetti. I don't. And here it is. Everybody that cried, Lord, Lord, ain't crying, Lord, Lord, ain't saved. So here it is. Watch this. So the zeal had eaten them up. And we know that customs, it becomes a way in which we live. David says in Psalm 69:9, for the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproach of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me. Reproach when we look at you and disapprove of what you're doing. Ain't it somehow everyone could point the finger at your wrong? And you doing the same thing? Y'all done got sanctified. Y'all must be Sadducees now. The reproach, he says, it comes upon me of what they've done. I know there's some guilt by association people in the house that can remember the time when mama said, boy, if you keep hanging with that garbage, you keep messing with that mess, you're going to find yourself in a place that can't nobody get you out but Jesus. I know I'm looking at some women that can say, your mama told you, girl, if you keep fooling with that no good son of a so-and-so, you know you ain't going to get nothing but heartaches and trouble. Y'all done hung up on me. Somebody looking at a girl that your mama said, boy, she ain't nothing but for the money. If you don't let her go, she going to let you go when the money run out. But how many know when you got your hand in God's hand? David said, then I went to the Lord and said, Lord, deliver me from the reproach that's been given upon me. Yeah. He said it in his text in Psalm 69. When you read down further, he says, these ones that bring the reproach upon me, they're sitting at the gate talking about me. Uh-oh. Yeah. Let me pause and ask you this question. How many people are sitting at the gate talking about somebody? How many times have you just walked to the gate to talk about somebody that didn't enter the gate? Yeah, y'all looking at me. Many of us are like the man that had begged for alms. We want help, but just because I don't want you to get the help, I'm just going to deposit into your misery. The Bible says when the man was at the gate begging for alms, Peter and John walked by and said, silver and gold I have none, but such as I do have I give to thee. But watch this. The Bible also said that man was there from day to day. So that lets me know people saw him in misery, but walked on past him. But somebody should be shouting that God's love helped my misery. In fact, God's love for me turned my misery into miracle. Now I'm a miracle. Now I am a living testimony. Because to everything you deposited in my life to shoot me down, God said I had something better for you. And I wish I could get two and I'll make three that can say his love saved my misery. His love kept me when I was miserable, when I was wretchedly uncomfortable. But God's love comforted me. Yeah. So I believe that's why David says, many are the affliction of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them from them all. God's sacrifice will turn your misery into miracles. But lastly, and I'm going to get ready to go to my seat. Not only do we see the love through the eyes of a shepherd, sacrifice is for the miserable, but his sacrifice is for morality. Because the text says, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Is that in your Bible? The sacrifice for morality, because there will be those that are subject to death in their wrong. And there will be those that are subject to death in their right. Can I help you? When you're sinning, your punishment is death. You're subject to death. But when you're living righteously, you're subject unto death. Meaning that now that I'm living right, I'm not in fear of death. Because I know there's a better place prepared. I wish I had some Bible readers. He says in the text, he says that you may have everlasting life. Life is prosperous on the other side, not down below. And so what we need to understand is that his sacrifice was for the morality of the saints that will live right, but give those that are living wrong an opportunity to get it right. In fact, those that are living wrong are subject to the death because there's punishment that comes behind the sin. But those that are living right, we can walk around death because we know death has no sting and grave has no victory. Somebody should be shouting right there. You should have been dead a long time ago. Thanks be to God, the love of Jesus was upon your life. That's called divine favor. Though the enemy tried to destroy you, God had you protected and covered. I wish I had some redeemed believers that could just lift up your hands and said, I'm saved. I'm thankful that he covered me. He protected me even at the point of death. So then he tells us in his word that my son comes that the world do not be condemned, but that the world through my son may be saved. That's what the Bible says. And the love through the eyes of a shepherd reminds me of two boys. Two brothers by the name of Billy and JC. When you saw one, you saw the other. Billy and JC did everything together. Billy was small in stature. JC was big and strong. JC wouldn't say much to nobody. Billy was the talker of the bunch. Jesus, the love through the eyes of a shepherd, reminds me of Billy and JC because Billy and JC were mine workers. And every time they would work, Billy would tell JC where they're going to work. One day, Billy and JC were in the mine and they were swinging with their picks. The mine, unfortunately, collapsed on Billy and JC. While they were in the mine, Billy got frustrated. Billy went and sat on a rock and put his hand over his head, trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this mess. But JC just stood there and he didn't say a mumbling word. JC then went over to Billy and he picked up Billy's pick and he picked up his pick and he began to swing real fast at the rocks. And as he was swinging, the rocks was coming down. And Billy said, JC, you're working too fast. You need to let me have a swing at it. JC just looked back at Billy and said, follow me. Ain't the Lord all right? While they were in the mine, JC was swinging and Billy was saying, JC, you're going to wear yourself out if you keep swinging so fast. JC just looked back at Billy and said, follow me. Ain't the Lord all right? They got word that the oxygen level was going to be gone and that they may not live to tell anybody about it. JC just kept on swinging.
and he told Billy to follow me. Billy got behind JC and he said, JC, why don't you give me a swing at it? JC looked at Billy and he just said, follow me. JC kept swinging like he was about to lose his mind. Billy then told JC, he said, it's beginning to work. I see some light on the other side. JC kept on swinging and he looked at Billy and he said, follow me. Ain't the Lord all right? To finally JC, he swung and broke him out of the mine. When they got out of the mine, JC was standing there with soot all over his body. Billy was standing back with not even dirt on his body. JC fell down and he was gasping for air. Billy ran to JC. He asked JC, he said, tell me why. JC, tell me why. JC looked at Billy and he said, I did it all because I loved you. And he went on home to glory. Billy began to cry. The people ran to Billy and asked Billy what was wrong. Billy said, my brother JC loved me so much that he made me follow as he pulled me through. That lets me know the love of the shepherd. He lets us know that if we just follow him, he'll pull us through. How do we know it? One Friday, your big brother went on the cross. They hung him high. They stretched him wide. How many know he died? Didn't he die? All he wanted you to do was follow him. He hung from the 6th to the 9th hour. He died on the cross. All the blood came running down. Water came running down. But all he wanted you to do is follow him. They took him down, put him in a borrowed tomb, and he stayed there all day Friday, all night Friday, all day Saturday, all night Saturday. But how many know early Sunday morning, he got up, your big brother got up with all power in heaven and earth in his hands. And he said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw men unto me. That's what love will do. Love will keep you close when you're feeling lonely and despair. Love will keep you close when you're feeling all alone. Love will keep you close when there's no one in the world to listen to your prayer. But how many know Jesus? Won't Jesus make a way? Didn't he do it? Didn't he do it? Somebody say, he did it. He did it. He did it for me. Do me one more favor. Just slip your hand in your neighbor's hand and tell him the love that God has for me. It's for me. The love God has for you is for you. And now we love the Lord. Let's do what lovers do. Let's celebrate Jesus for the love he shared on the cross. Do me one more favor. Just slide your hand around another neighbor and tell your neighbor, this too shall pass. Why? Because Jesus, he paid it all on that old rugged cross. He made a way out of no way. Can I get you to do one more favor? Just put your hand on yourself and tell yourself and say, self, I'm so glad that God's love, I'm so glad God's love lifted me. Do I got anybody that can help me celebrate and say, I'm so glad that he loved me. He looked through his eyes and he looked beyond my faults and saw all of my needs. I got a question I want to ask you. Ain't he all right? Have you tried him? Look at somebody and say, I tried him, and I know he's all right. I tried him, and I know he will. He will. He will. The love through the eyes of a shepherd. The love through the eyes of a shepherd. Sometimes I feel like David. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. That's a good shepherd. How many know he's a good shepherd? Don't fool me now. Come on, let's celebrate Jesus. Love through the eyes of a shepherd. Nicodemus knew who he was. But Nicodemus let the position and his power to keep him from coming to God when everyone could see him in the day. And this is how God loves us so much. Though you come to him in your darkest and deepest secrets, he don't tell on you. Had Nicodemus came in the daytime and began to be inquisitive and tell what was on his mind, y'all know how people do when they surround you. They gossip. They put schism on you. Hello. All because you're confessing to God. But I don't know about you, but my confession keeps me saved. Y'all just missed that. Because in my confession, I'm confessing to the only one that can save me. I may tell you about my wrong. That's only for you to pray for me. And in most cases, for you to know the truth. Y'all just missed that too. But when I talk to Jesus, my confession is, Lord, I need you to save me. Because I'm a wretch undone. I've done too many things in the dark. And Lord, I know if I don't come to you, you're going to bring it all to the light. Maybe that's why some of us can't shout, because we still like to be in the dark and don't want nobody to see the real you. So the love through the eye of the shepherd shows us that if we just talk to him, understand his sacrifice, he will love you despite of all that you go through. Many people come to church today and they deal with Christians and Pharisees. And really, Pharisees were linked to Christians. They just did not want to acknowledge God for who he was. Because not everyone in the house was raised the same way. Because, watch this. Nicodemus was a Pharisee, but he was the king of the Jews. Who was Jesus connected to? And sometimes we just have to omit other people and just give your life to God. Because if he designed it for us to rely on people for solutions, then there was no need for him to send Jesus. But he designed it for us to put our trust in God's hand. Because one thing about God, I've never heard of him losing a case. Never heard of him losing a patient.
And I've never heard of God turning his back on those that come. And so maybe you're saying, I'm tired of being in darkness. Maybe you're saying, I'm ready to do things different as we stand to give the invitation. And maybe you're saying, you know what, I've been talking to him in darkness, and yet it seemed like he's not listening.